capital punishment is a legal penalty in the U.S. state of Louisiana. Despite remaining a legal penalty, there have been no executions in Louisiana since 2010, and no involuntary executions since 2002. Execution protocols are tied up in litigation due to a 2012 lawsuit challenging Louisiana's lethal injection procedures. In addition, certain pharmaceutical companies and manufacturers do not want their products associated with capital punishment, meaning the state has been unable to obtain lethal injection drugs. Despite this, a 2018 survey by the Louisiana State University found that the majority of Louisianan citizens still support capital punishment. The most recent execution was of Gerald Bordelon, who waived his appeals and asked to be executed in 2010. He is the only person to have been executed in Louisiana since 2002. Bordelon was born on February 19, 1962, and grew up in Louisiana. He attended schools in the Baton Rouge area and was considered impaired. As a result, he was put in a special resource class, before his mother took him out of school altogether after the principal advised her to. Doctors believed Bordelon suffered from antisocial personality disorder and sexual sadism disorder, but had an IQ in the normal range. On March 17, 1982, Bordelon offered an 18-year-old girl a ride home in his car. After she got in, he pulled out a knife, took her to a house, and forced oral sex on her. In 1982, he pleaded guilty to sexual battery and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. On June 14, 1990, he kidnapped another woman at knife point and took her to an abandoned building where he forced oral sex on her and raped her. In 1990, Bordelon was convicted of forcible rape and 2 counts of aggravated crime against nature and sentenced to 20 years in prison. While on parole, he met Jennifer Koch over the internet and married her a year later. Despite knowing about his criminal history as a sex offender, Koch married Bordelon. The family then moved to Gloucester, Mississippi, in October 2001, living in a trailer on land owned by Bordelon's parents. During Christmas period in 2001, Koch's daughters, one of whom was Courtney LeBlanc, told her that Bordelon had molested them. Koch alerted Child Protective Services in Mississippi and Bordelon was forced to leave. The couple then separated and Koch returned to Louisiana with her family. Despite this, she remained in contact with Bordelon. Bordelon abducted LeBlanc in 2002 from his estranged wife's trailer with a knife from the kitchen, took her to Mississippi, where he forced her to perform oral sex on him, then drove back to Louisiana and strangled her. When Courtney LeBlanc's body was found 11 days later, she was wearing only a pair of shorts and one tennis shoe. Bordelon led police to her body in a wooded area by the Amite River in Livingston Parish, about 20 miles from Baton Rouge. A state Supreme Court opinion upholding Bordelon's right to waive all appeals says Bordelon had a diagnostic profile of sexual sadism, and he told psychiatrists his crimes involved an escalating pattern of violence. Koch was later convicted of child abuse by a Mississippi jury for failing to keep Bordelon away from her children. Koch received a suspended 5-year sentence, with 5 years of probation. Bordelon was charged with first-degree murder and second-degree kidnapping for the death of Courtney LeBlanc. He was found guilty of first-degree murder on June 29, 2006. And was sentenced to death the following day. After being sentenced, he waived his appeals and asked that his execution be carried out. According to court documents, he said he would commit a similar crime again if he was ever given the opportunity. On January 7, 2010, Bordelon was executed via lethal injection at Louisiana State Penitentiary in West Feliciana Parish, Louisiana. He was one of 3 people executed in the United States on that specific day. The others were Vernon Lamont Smith in Ohio and Kenneth Mosley in Texas. They were the first 3 people to be executed in the United States in 2010. The executions of 3 or more people within a single day is something that has not occurred in the United States since. Gerald Bordelon, 47, was pronounced dead at 6:32 p.m. at the Louisiana State Penitentiary, after receiving lethal drug injections. He was sentenced to death for the murder of Courtney LeBlanc, whom he kidnapped at knife point from her home 7 years ago. Just before his execution, Bordelon apologized to LeBlanc's mother, uncle and sister, who witnessed the execution, and he asked for their forgiveness. "I'm sorry. I don't know if that brings any closure or peace. It should have never happened, but it did, and I'm sorry," he said, choking up and halting to collect himself. His eyes red-rimmed from crying, Bordelon added, "I'd like to apologize to my family and tell them that I love them." Against his white t-shirt, Bordelon wore a gold cross given to him by his 19-year-old daughter, with whom he exchanged necklaces earlier in the day. He had given her a cross made by his fellow inmates. It was Louisiana's first execution since 2002. Bordelon's lawyer Jill Kraft said Bordelon became the first person in Louisiana to successfully refuse a death sentence appeal since the death penalty was reinstated more than 3 decades ago. When Bordelon asked to waive his appeal, he said he would commit the same crime again if ever given the chance. Bordelon met with his family at the Angola prison in the hours before his execution. For his last meal he ate fried succulent fish, topped with crawfish etouffee, a peanut butter and apple jelly sandwich and chocolate chip cookies, said Pamela Board, a spokeswoman for the State Department of Corrections. 3 of LeBlanc's relatives watched the execution, including LeBlanc's uncle Damien Koch, her sister Brittany Boudreau and her mother Jennifer Koch, who was convicted of child abuse for allowing Bordelon near her children after they accused him of molestation. Sniffling could be heard from the separate room where they watched Bordelon die. The family didn't speak to reporters after his death. After Bordelon made his final statement, 7 men strapped him to the black padded gurney and removed his shackles. Wearing a t-shirt and blue jeans, he stared at the ceiling as prison officials closed the curtains for the insertion of the intravenous tubes. The curtains were reopened after he was connected to the ives. Bordelon spoke to Warden Burl Kane, and he took several deep breaths as the drugs took hold. Kane said the convicted killer again repeated his remorse and asked Kane to tell his daughter that he wasn't afraid. At 6:32 p.m., Kane said, "We now pronounce Gerald Bordelon dead. We've sent his soul for final judgment." Death penalty opponents with the American Civil Liberties Union of Louisiana held a vigil in New Orleans at the time of the execution. Bordelon's mother, daughter and 2 sisters released a statement, calling LeBlanc's death a horribly tragic loss for our family. Courtney became very close with our family, and we all loved her dearly. They also said Bordelon fought an insurmountable problem in his psyche his entire life. Bordelon also was part of a failed jail escape attempt in October 2003. More than 83 other people remain on death row in Louisiana. Thank you for watching Death Row.